Hello there and welcome. I am Ungainly Titan and I play World of Tanks, but I'm trying to wean myself off. Haven't been doing as good a job as I intended. I started out pretty well there after Christmas and I was playing other games on the weekends in particular and in the evenings besides World of Tanks, but then March came along and Wargaming started their March Madness. In the meanwhile though, in the period since Christmas, I managed to get in several games of Master of Orion and thought I'd like to do a video giving my thoughts and opinions on the game. Before I go any further though, I should mention that I don't intend to stop playing World of Tanks, I just intend to play other games a little bit more. So let's talk a little bit about Master of Orion, which you can see gameplay footage from there in the background. Master of Orion is a turn-based 4X game. You start off on a single planet and you explore, you exploit resources, you can exterminate your enemies if that's what you're inclined to do, and I can never remember what the fourth X stands for. Now remember, the fourth X is for expand. So you start off in a single location. So what does Master of Orion look like? Well, you have single player and multiplayer. I haven't tried the multiplayer, so I can't make any comments about it. Single player, you start off, you can continue an existing game. It kind of auto saves the game. It has one nice feature in that you can go into the score graphic and you can select any particular turn and roll back to the turn. So as you can see, you have a selection of races. They all have different characteristics, humans included. And you can set up, you have quite a bit of flexibility about how you set up. I've tried circle and spiral galaxies. The major difference is the circular galaxies tend to have every node on a solar system is available at the start of the game, whereas the spiral galaxies have nodes that are unstable warp points and you can't use them without a particular technology. You can start out in pre-warp mode or with warp technology already developed. The essential difference is if you go pre-warp, none of the technology, none of the builds that are there's a certain amount of builds that are automatic. If you go post-warp, which is the normal mode, you start off with defensive structures. You have marine barracks, you have a missile base, I think, and a star base on your local system. You start off with a colony ship, a frigate, and a couple of scouts. If you go pre-warp, you have to develop the technology to build the starships, and you start off basically with nothing in your in your home system. It's kind of up to you which way you want to do it. You have different sizes of galaxies, which I haven't played around with in too much, and you can select. You can automatically build. You can let the system manage it if that's what you want to do. I suppose like all of these kind of games, you really want to manage your core colonies yourself. Micromanage. You can manage apparently the placement of buildings on the planetary surface, which I haven't experimented with, and I don't know how much effects it can have. I'm not sure how much scope there is for micromanagement, and I'm also not sure how challenging the game would be to real hardcore 4X type gamers, the guys who play Civ 4 on deity level and that kind of stuff. The tech tree, you have a blueprint system for managing your ships. You have a tech tree. The tech tree is serviceable. It's lots of stuff in it. There's stuff that will basically boost your economy, your cash income. There's stuff that will boost your productivity, science boosting, stuff that will boost the happiness on your civilizations, and also obviously the certain technologies I need to research in order to gain the final science victory. However, it's also a little bit bland. I haven't played around with the other civilizations, so I don't know how much it or let's see what effects it has on them, or how much difference of flavour there is between the different species. However, there's nothing in it that will massively change the orientation or economic management, shall we say, of your civilization. Whereas in civilization, for instance, contrasted with that, certain technologies, once you research them, or if you research them first, they could make a huge difference. Some of them would be, say, orientated you strongly towards a science victory, or orientated you strongly towards a diplomacy victory or a cultural victory or whatever. And Master of Orion, as far as I can see, while certain technologies will help you in the different directions, they're not going to be decisive. It's more how you manage the different systems within your area of space that you control, how you develop your colonies, managing your economy, keeping your happiness high, preventing people from becoming unhappy, stuff like that will have a more profound impact on your achievement of victory than anything you do on the tech tree. Picking priorities in the tech tree is more, I suppose, when do you want to develop different types of starships, stuff like that. Certainly at the normal level, the aliens aren't very hostile. The other thing is that your empire is pretty defensible. The thing is that you can expand out, explore. If you explore fairly aggressively early on, you can generally find bottleneck systems where you can, if you defend them, if you go in, settle those, build your military outposts on the nodes, leaving or entering those systems, you can just stop the aliens from entering, and you can then settle the interior space, not quite at your leisure, but more or less at your leisure. So you have an advantage that you don't have in, say, like a civilization game where the border is linear, so to speak. The other thing is you've the usual other stuff. You have espionage. The unit management is pretty good. You can spy on your neighbours. You can conduct trade deals. The diplomacy stuff is pretty reasonable. So the early game, you start out, like I said, you have to explore pretty aggressively because you want to try and find as much as you can in the local area, and you then have a lot of options. You have multiple different types of planets, so you have high gravity, low gravity, and normal gravity planets. Some races prefer high gravity, some prefer low gravity, most of them prefer normal gravity. You have worlds that are radioactive, toxic, terran, arid, jungle, stuff like that. You can also manufacture planets. You can turn asteroid belts into planets when you develop appropriate technology, or gas giants into planets. So you don't need to expand over huge amounts of the galaxy in order to have or build yourself a good, robust economy in the mid-game. War could be very tedious in the sense that if you go to war, it's big stack. You want to build a big stack of the most advanced ships, and you want to mix. You probably want a lot of cheap stuff to basically spread the targets of the enemies, and then you want enough capital ships to be able to carry the fight. You get anomalies that turn up, and you can investigate them, and they start out at the early game. They can be quite helpful because you can get you free ships, some resources, some credits, occasionally even free tech. So you don't see planets. You have to explore individual planets. You can't just explore a system. So overall, there's quite a variety in the gameplay. There's a galactic council system where everybody's being discovered, where you could win basically a diplomatic victory. There's a way of winning by trade, by having the biggest economy. There's a way of winning by science. There's a way of winning by domination, which is basically wipe out everybody else. And then there's the Antaran victory, which is the Antarans are an ancient race that exists in a subspace dimension. They pop up every now and again, and they'll basically arrive and annihilate a colony, or try to annihilate a colony, depending on the level of defenses. Sometimes you'll have survivors in the colony. They don't destroy the structures, and they don't take the colony off you. So you can repopulate it again, but they can really wreck your economy, and they can really wreck your Starfleet because they generally come with enough firepower to take out anything that you can bring to bear. Locally, it's not a guaranteed victory. You can bring enough firepower to bear to fight them off, but it's kind of a 50-50 chance type situation, and they tend to take on whoever is, as far as I can make out, whoever is in the lead. You can research Orion runes, and if you get enough of them for them, you can open up your own gate into their pocket dimension and defeat their fleet in its own backyard, so to speak. Battle-wise, you can see here, this is a cinematic view of the battle. I'm letting the AI run the actual battle, but you can also micromanage the battle to a certain extent if you want to do that. So overall, it's a pretty solid game. It has some glitches, and I think you could do with a bit of polishing. Some of the stuff is a little bit underdeveloped. The graphic of landing on planets is pretty poor in the sense it's really 90s. It's just basically a painted background and a little sprite spaceship coming down. There's a few things in the fleet management side that I think could be done a bit better. You should be able to hover over a fleet. If you have an active fleet that's moving, it's in transit, say, and you have another fleet that's guarding a particular spot or asleep on a particular spot, then you hover over the active in transit fleet. You can't see the other one. You actually have to go into the fleet management menu and look up the name of the node point or the location they're at to activate the other fleet. The espionage system is pretty simple, and it's actually, straightforward enough. Game could do with a help system, if only something that would describe everything in the game, so that you can look stuff up immediately. The exact effects of various structures, buildings, units, stuff like that. Something similar to the Civipedia on the Civilization. It doesn't have that, and I think it could really do with it. Overall, I enjoy the game. I think it's well worth getting, and I definitely will get the extra DLCs at some point. I just need to play it a bit more, play a bit more of the races, and play around with the different configurations of the galaxies and stuff. Playing at a normal level, which I have been doing so because I'm a relatively casual gamer on these things, you won't explore the whole tech tree within the 500 turns. So I find that it's best to switch off the turn-based victory. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you again soon.